Very okay here. Cold, yes, but yes, very interesting moments here in Kenya, as you say.
Right. And what is the latest in terms of protests in Kenya? What can you tell us?
We're just counting the losses, still trying to document the death toll and those people have been injured and those the properties that were destroyed. And as you just mentioned rightfully in the item that we just read over there, we're still reeling from the president's address yesterday. It came out of nowhere, and in itself, it's speaking of a president who's very, very angry, seems to be frustrated. And even if you had got to go through our papers today across the country, the mood is that something is clearly very wrong with the president because he seems to be actually urging the police to keep on killing people, and it's really eliciting a lot of reactions from across the country. And we're expecting more reactions today as the death toll also is expected to rise as we speak.
I mean, how does he even justify these kinds of words? The president having ordered the police to shoot the protesters. And as you say, what you make of the violence insinuated in the statements in terms of how protesters should be handled is that the president is angry. But how would he justify saying things like this?
He says that under the Kenyan law, anybody who attacks a police station is guilty of a terrorist attack or crimes of terrorism. And this in itself actually negates the constitution of Kenya in terms of police brutality and how the police are supposed to handle members of the public. And the fact that this comes a few days after the Interior CS, who's in charge of security, also called on the police to kill protesters who try to come to the police station, or just anybody who's seen coming close to a police station. Actually, it's raising a lot of fears and justifying that order by the CS was actually given to him by the president himself. And it's quite interesting because it's actually not anchored on any law and completely unjustified. And we know that the president sometimes speaks out of emotion. And this in itself is what the media here in Kenya is calling out on him to try to manage his emotions because he is supposed to be a father figure. But as you also indicated in the news, what people are forgetting is that the last protests were not actually Gen Z protests. Gen Z did not participate. It was a protest that was actually called by the government itself. And the people that they were fighting are not known to the locals. So this clearly talks about a government that is fighting gangs that it has fronted. And actually the people who have suffered more are civilians who are not armed. We're talking about a case of a child in outside Nairobi who was shot 3 times and then put to a police cell. He was just aged 15 years. He wasn't participating in the protest. Another girl aged 12 years was killed in Kiambu County. A bullet found her in the house watching television. So this in itself tells you that the highest number of casualties were not protesters. Yet, still, this is a protest that actually saw the second highest number of people killed since 2024. So the number is around 33 people who have been killed, but we are still documenting on the same.
This is shocking because over and above them not being protesters, they also don't seem to be innocent bystanders. They were not even in any vicinity in terms of what was happening, and the nature of the wounds found on the victims would suggest that there's something either that's being hidden going on here or some, serious sinister as far as that is concerned. This is shocking, Alex. And on Monday, the Human Rights Commission said at least 31 people were killed and over 100 injured. How far do you know as far as those figures are concerned?
As far as we are concerned, the government statement talked about 11 people dead. The KNCHR, which is a government human rights body, talked about 31, and still we are receiving reports of people have been killed. Not yet documented, so the number is expected to officially rise. But now the most interesting thing is that what a trend that is emerging is that whenever police officers shot and killed somebody or even injured that person, they rushed these persons or the victims to local hospitals, public hospitals, where bullets are removed from their bodies before they are released to their families and then documents destroyed. We are dealing with a case in Limuru. I talked about the child who was shot 3 times, but the police officers took that boy to the hospital, had the bullets removed, and then the medical documents retained by the police actually taken away from the father, but the father was forced to pay for the bills that they incurred. Then the boy was later on taken to a police station and actually took the intervention of a Law Society of Kenya to have the boy released from custody. Right now, as you speak, he is at the Kenyatta National Hospital, his wounds being cleaned, but the bullets are not yet found. This is not an isolated case, because we also have around 8 cases where bodies are being taken for burial, but the bullets had been removed without the family's consent and with the post-mortems officially done. So it's a very, very scary moment, and we are following up. It's really, really, really scary, because the police, whatever they're doing is actually not legal and goes against all the laws that actually govern the land and also matters. So it's very, very, very scary.
Absolutely, on a regional and international level. Meanwhile, just yesterday, we were talking about reports that 2 hospitals in Kenya sustained damage during protests that were to mark the 35th anniversary of pro-democracy rallies. These demonstrations having left at least 11 people dead, according to witnesses. What has the president since responded to that, before responding to these violent acts or violent insinuations in terms of how the police should be handling protesters?
Actually, the president hasn't said anything at all until yesterday, since the protest broke out. And actually, whatever came out of his mouth yesterday shocked everybody, because he had been quiet all along, before and even after the protest, until yesterday. So we really don't know how this came about, but we still don't understand what brought this case, these utterances, and what pushed him to do that. But yes, it's true that we had 2 cases of hospitals being attacked beyond police stations. One was in the outskirts of Nairobi, in a county called Kajiado, where a hospital was attacked by hired criminals who burst into the facility, took out patients, and then actually tried to stop a CS operation that was underway in one of the theaters, and forcing the doctor actually to intervene and plead with them before she could also save the child and the mother. So it was very, very scary, and actually the doctor has spoken to us. There's another case in Kiambu County, where a hospital was also attacked, and the criminals stopped mothers who are there to give birth and actually kicked them out of the facility. But still, no statement from the Ministry of Health, nor from the president or any other institution that is concerned with the government, nor anything to do with the health sector. However, the health caucus that involves medics have condemned that act and actually released a statement to the same, and called on the CS in charge of health to also speak to it, but he has not so far done so.
And one would think that would be the first thing the president would address in terms of the health facilities and patient care, with all these protests and injuries resulting from them. Of course, there's the deaths that come as precedents, but that's something he should have spoken of before insinuating violence be implemented on protesters. It's shocking. Let's leave it there for now, Alex. We're going to continue to check in with you in Kenya, as well as our other journalists and correspondents there. Crazy times we're living in. I don't know what's going on in Kenya. How did we get to this, and what needs to happen now? Alex Kairie, our Kenyan correspondent.